ESPN News with Tom Slivick. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at tspntv.com. Hi everyone, Tom Slivick. Welcome to TSPN's News for Today, and we have with us Supervisor Richard Forster from District 2, and you're going to be giving us the pre-agenda report.
It'll be a short one. I think this is one of those days where closed session far exceeds open session.
Okay.
But
the open is the open more fun than the closed usually?
sometimes it's not very much fun. But
Okay, I think
we'll
the
see.
closed are tough. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to remember what you can talk about in closed session
Right.
is labor issues, property issues, and litigation.
Okay. You know, that might be interesting. Just before maybe we get there, with the labor, with the the unions asking to maybe decertify, what happened to that, Richard? Is it?
Well, that is going now. The board agreed to let them certify the election, to certify the numbers
Okay.
that they had and the numbers of employees asking for the decertification election to move forward. So at this point, we'll see what happens.
Okay,
There could be a petition filed by one side or the other, depending on the board action. That depends who's going to file a petition with the Public Employee Relations Board to challenge the board's action. So in this case, it would be SEIU and their union to challenge the actions of the board, qualifying the election and saying it can move forward.
So in a way, is it that it's not then in the employees' hands now with the because they want to decertify it? That's where it is, but they're still represented by the union.
That's right. It
Okay.
is in the employees' hands, and it's basically up to the union, which is made up of
Right,
the employees and their
right.
executive board, to make a decision on this now. So I don't want to give the impression that it's just the union personnel making the decision. It is the employees that belong to SEIU, a group of them that don't want or may not want the decertification vote to take place, as well as the union representatives. So, but we'll see what happens there.
Right.
The board took the action based on the evidence that we had at hand, and now it's up to either side it's like a chess game. Either side's going to make their move now.
That's kind of interesting because unions don't usually decertify. Not usually, or at least in my...
Employees,
Yeah, I looked
or it's usually not taken to a vote for, you don't see it very much, but it has happened across the state. So,
Okay, basically my thing is with the, knowledge is with the private sector unions anyway, so go ahead.
it's up to the employees whether they feel that the union has been giving adequate representation to them.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
All right,
First
now we're on to the agenda.
Yeah, short agenda. We have 4 items, one of them being the approval of the minutes, so a very short agenda. Only one item that will take substantial time, I believe, but first item up is from the probation department and honoring Michelle Carney for her 20 years of service with Amador County in the probation department, and the resolution goes through her life, but and through her time in Amador County. Nice to see an employee stay with a department this long. I mean, she started out there as I believe as a secretary 1, worked her way all the way up to program manager and then finance and administrative supervisor. So she worked her way up to a position of a lot of responsibility in that department and handling their daily program activities.
Right.
So we wish Michelle well.
Congratulations, Michelle.
In her retirement. We will have Sergeant John Selva in, who is going to speak on the current drought declaration by Governor Brown and what this means for Amador County. People might think we're on the verge of getting out of a drought. We're going to have rain on Wednesday this week, but really that's not the way it works. As I heard this morning on an interview with a water personnel from Folsom, they said very low percentage of us getting enough rain in February March, April, and May to make up for the amount that we haven't received thus far.
We'd have to get an awful lot of rain.
Oh, we'd have to get an awful lot, and more than likely in that case, you'd be talking about flooding.
Right.
So-
But a quarter of an inch of rain, I think, might be forecast, and that's certainly a lot of help for local lawns and
Right.
things like that.
Well,
And certainly the trees are looking forward to it.
A lot of help for the
Vines.
cattlemen out there and sheep farmers that haven't had any rain, enough to put even really any grass at all in the fields. And, enough there are crops out there that need that winter vegetation. All of our oak trees need that winter rain so that they'll be sustained. Otherwise, their root structure will fall apart.
Right, and that's when they drought, that's when we get beetle damage, because the water going up the trunks, from what I understand, cuts the beetles in half from the pressure moving up and down their boreholes.
But at this time, the governor is recommending 20% conservation across the state, voluntary. The Water Agency has come out with that same declaration as of last week. They're recommending people conserve 20% of water. Unless we get significant rain, it's going to be very bad. I attended a drought emergency meeting that Jackson Valley Irrigation District was having last week. I mean, what they're talking about is cutting back. One, they have a lot of out-of-district people that receive water. Those people would receive zero. They have a lot of district people who would probably lose 20 to 40% of their water supply, which means, in many cases, leaving probably not row crops, but places like permanent pasture for cattle, just letting that dry up, or if you farm alfalfa, not having that alfalfa in the fields.
Right. Heard a radio report today where local ranchers, or I guess where they auction off stock, usually say they normally get maybe about this time of year 100 head of cattle, and now are getting about 1,000 head of cattle. I believe it was a week for selling. So
Yeah.
ranchers looking to see how they can get rid of some of their stock because they won't be able to feed them.
Well, yeah. I mean, what do? Do you keep, if you have 500 head, do you send 100 to the market, or do you feed them hay? And
Right.
at the price of hay now, hay has gone from,
Oh.
when I purchased mine in September, it was $200 a ton. Now it's 250. That was
my
about
gosh.
2 weeks ago, so I would imagine it's more than that now.
Wow.
It's just
So that's a
not
quarter.
economic to keep the animals and have to go out and buy all of that hay, which everyone has to feed animals right
Right.
now. There's just not enough grass out there.
Right.
If you can look at any field in the county and drive by where there's cattle out there, you're lucky to see a speck of grass out there. So
Okay.
we have probably our longest item. This will be a public hearing at 10:30. It's on from our community development agency, and it's on creating specific building standards that will apply to construction, enlargement, conversion, alteration, repair, use, maintenance, and occupancy of limited density owner-built, owner-occupied dwellings in rural areas of the county.
Sounds pretty
That's a
specific.
mouthful. What it basically means is we're going to exempt people from current building standards, but they would still be under the law. So as the law, our staff has done, and they've gone to counties, the two they received feedback from were Humboldt and Mendocino counties.
Right.
But what this will do is create a new ordinance that complies with the state ordinance of how you can build a structure without sprinklers, how you can build it without the permitting process it would require if you don't get ongoing, or not permits. This is the check, the building check. You have to get your building final, but you could forego all of the checks leading up to that place by your building department. What else would it do? It would allow exemptions for generators. They still have to fall below the noise standard, but you can imagine in Humboldt, Mendocino, in the out and about areas there,
Right.
it's necessary to have generators in a lot of cases. It does require traffic fees. It does require school impact fees and all the other fees. Basically, the biggest one is your sprinklers, that you could forego the sprinklers, which is really sticks in a lot of people's craw because I know our county didn't want it, many other counties didn't want it. I know our Amador Fire Protection District, they like the sprinklers, it's health and safety.
Right.
You know, we survived years and years and years without sprinklers, and personally myself, I don't see why we can't do it now.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that. Would you think this would be a good thing for TSPN to tape so that the people could get an understanding? Will your discussion give a good understanding of what's going to happen?
I think
Or,
it
you
would
know,
be
where the rules might, how things might formulate?
Well, it is, but not all the supervisors are going to agree with this, though, either. While I agree with foregoing the sprinklers in a home, I'm not sure that I agree with foregoing the temporary checks or the ongoing checks that the building department has to make as a home is being constructed. Although it does require the final, does require our building department to come in on the final, and it does require ingress and egress according to safety codes. So window sizes and things like that have to give sufficient ingress egress.
Okay.
The fire code, as it says, they've said in Humboldt, the fire code does not apply, but the fire safe code does apply, and that's for access.
Okay.
The issue with the sprinklers, you know, I can kind of see that this came up in our previous meetings, that it might be better suited for this for cabins and things like that are limited use structures rather than a permanent structure. But, you know, the board's going to have to decide on that tomorrow.
I believe when I was there that some of the supervisors that seemed to be before this were asked by the board to go back and get some more specifics of what they were doing in the other counties, so you had better handles on what was being proposed. Is that, did I have that accurately?
Well, I mean, we got that from Humboldt, and we got that from Mendocino. The one thing the inspector said from Humboldt County, he thinks their own ordinance is lacking, and he would recommend a maximum size of structure. He would limit it to 1 story. Roofing and siding should meet urban wildland interface requirements, and notice should be recorded against the property, which I believe in our case, notice would be recorded against the property. I somewhat agree with that, the size of the structure, that it might be a good idea. You know, I still have to put some more thought into this before our meeting tomorrow, but that's there'll be a lot of deliberation on this tomorrow. And I don't think the board's just going to come in and rubber stamp it and say it's good to go. There'll be some input from the public, I'm sure. Some people are going to like it, some won't. It will allow you to forego some of the provisions. I mean, this is Title 25 of the State Housing Law, and under Article 8 of Title 25, it establishes this limited density owner-built rural dwelling. And all the language is here, but it allows you to get away from the current building zoning structures, ordinances that are out there and governed by the state.
Okay, now this will be the second time it comes before the board, so will you be possibly taking action?
I think this will be the first public hearing.
Okay.
So this is for final approval.
All right. Okay. All right. So if you're interested in that, that'd be a good thing to, you know,
10:30.
to come by. 10:30.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when you figure you'll hit that. Okay, Richard, you got like 30 seconds. You just want to tell anybody, you
Well,
want to use that up?
the meeting starts at 9 o'clock. It'll be very quick, the first 2 items. And
I would like to put in a plug, too, for the way, I'm not sure if people know, but your website has the audio that streams.
That's right.
And, you know, I listen to that. Me and Sue, we like listening to that, and it's really good.
Yeah, sometimes you don't get the full flavor of the meeting by just listening to the audio, but it's sufficient to
It's
at
better
least
than
know
not
what
being
happened.
there, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish all the supervisors would remember they're being taped, too.
Okay, all right. And we're going to be taking our break, and so stay with us. I believe I've got Terry Sanders coming on from something we had taped last Friday. So stay with us right here on TSPN.
You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.